Hi everyone, welcome back. Welcome to my channel. Welcome to a new video. In today's video, we will be talking about the new Bad Books album 3. This is the third studio album from Bad Books, an indie folk band that is comprised of Kevin Devine, a singer and songwriter, and also another band, Manchester Orchestra, which, believe it or not, they're not from Manchester and they're not an orchestra. So that's kind of a misnomer there. This is the third studio album from the guys, and this is their first in 7 years. They did a live album in between then, but that's not really considered a studio album, is it? No, but this is the first in 7 years, and while I wasn't completely head over heels for the first or the second album, I found myself really intrigued by this album. This is a 10-track, 40-minute album, and it's what I would compare it to, and this might be very, what's the word? This might be an interesting comparison, and also maybe one that might be unpopular, but I compare this album to Neutral Milk Hotel's In the Aeroplane Over the Sea. Even Kevin Devine found inspiration from that album in particular. I also get vibes of Elliott Smith and Pavement, and it's also believed that Kevin Devine has been influenced by even Nirvana and Bob Dylan. Mainly I see the comparisons of Neutral Milk Hotel and just a little bit of Elliott Smith. Going into this album, I had no expectations. I didn't know where it was going to lead me. I didn't expect to enjoy it as much as I actually did. And this album really kind of went under the radar for most people. But listening to this, man. For the first couple tracks, you actually kind of get like a happy vibe to this album. It's somewhat upbeat. The lyrics are not really that depressing yet. Song Real Well, UFO, and even up to Myths Made Plain. The first 3 tracks don't really have anything sad about them. The really interesting tidbit that I would like to point out is the somewhat political consciousness on the song Myths Made Plain. Now, this could be socially political and conscious or whatnot, or it could just totally mean like a relationship. Either way, it can work for both. But he specifically says, so in 2017, we did away with facts, all in a negotiation with a battle axe. There's a more, the American identity was laid to waste, but nothing really too depressing. Lake House is somewhat of like a somber, happy song. It's not really too upbeat in the sound, but it's kind of like reminiscing and loving and thinking, contemplating about our friendship and our love. There's a lot of relationship aspects about this album that are explored more in detail when you read into the lyrics, which are one of the bigger parts of this album. Then we get to the song I Love You, I'm Sorry, Please Help Me. Not my favorite introduction, but it does grow as a song. It does become better. And a lot of these songs have a very unique and similar quality to them. They have a linkage to them. All of them are kind of connected in some way, shape, or form. Then we get to the song Neighborhood, which then is a complete change in demeanor and a complete change in mood throughout the album. The mood was set when you heard the initial couple songs. It was kind of upbeat, it was kind of up there. And even the song UFO, which is the second track on this album, the last 2 lines that are repeated are, I belong here, I belong. Then a shift changes with the song Neighborhood, which is kind of, I would say, a very hyperbolic look on America. I mean, reading through this entire verse, it's kind of gruesome. It's portrays this neighborhood in which a guy was very different from the rest. So it kind of goes into detail about what they did with this person, and I'm not really going to spoil much of it. I want you guys to kind of listen to it for your own.
Going further into detail on this song in particular, you actually find out that, I just found this out, that this song is actually referencing 2 gruesome death cases. One of Matthew Shepard, who was violently beaten and tortured and left for dead tied to a fence for being gay. And then James Byrd Jr., who was an African American. He was murdered by 3 white supremacists. They chained him up to the back of their pickup truck and dragged him for 3 miles.
I love the ending of this, because you can't throw away all of the fruit you've got over one man's untraditional seed. That's a very nice line. Also, the outro I pointed out earlier, the outro to this song is now I Don't Belong Here, showing a change in mood throughout this entire album. Songs after this point become sadder and darker and more depressing, and even when you get up to the 8-minute track Army, it's all of the emotions heavily combined, and even the sound of the instruments, they get kind of distorted, they get kind of grainy and almost brittle-like. Reminds me of Holland 1945 on In the Aeroplane Over the Sea, where it's kind of loud and it's kind of very rough in the production of it. A lot of these tracks are somber, but again, literally the halfway point of this album after track 5 changes mood. And you can totally tell with the way the instruments sound. They're not upbeat anymore. They're not kind of glistening. They're more darker. They're kind of toned down. They're kind of eerier, I would say. There's also a couple religious aspects on this album, but I don't think that it's for Christianity. I'm a 7-page laundry list of sinful deeds I swore were not me. That's a good line. There are a lot of good, quotable, and very poetic and kind of meaningful lines across all of these songs, and they really feel so well written. It definitely feels like 7 years went into this album, even though I don't even think 7 years did go into this album. I think it was probably just a year or two. Back to the song Army, this is again an 8-minute song, and one of the things that is repeated here is there's nothing worse than blank. And usually verse 1 says there's nothing worse than losing your arm. Verse 2, losing your spine. Verse 3, there's nothing worse than a poverty line. There's nothing worse than being intertwined. That's on verse 4. Verse 5, you get there's nothing worse than silent alarm. Verse 6, there's nothing worse than losing your mind. Verse 7, there's nothing worse than losing your life. Verse 8, there's nothing worse than trusting a lie. And that's the end. All of these songs come together. They are connected in a very meaningful way, and I find myself to be enjoying a good amount of these songs. I mean, I am absolutely enamored with a good amount of songs on this album, to the point where I feel like giving Bad Books 3 an A. A solid A. I'm really loving this record. I'm coming back to this over and over again, and I'm just listening to it, and I feel the same emotions that I felt the same time I've listened to this the first. It's incredible. And with that said, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know your thoughts and opinions on this album down below. Let me know what albums you want me to review next, and that is it. Leave a like, comment, share, subscribe, do whatever you want. Bad Books 3. Until next time.